Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tbilisi, Georgia. Uh, I think people, yes, there we go, there's a car. There's a curfew here between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., which will be over in 9 days. Life is pretty much, for the most part, back to normal here in Georgia. Uh, I think they're gonna open the restaurants next week. Retail shops have opened, and life is pretty much back to normal, folks. Like it's other than restaurants, and the country is allowing tourists to come in July 1st. As I'm making this video, it's May 13th. Domestic tourism is gonna resume in June, mid-June, and then yeah, there's an ambulance car, and then tourists, foreigners can come in July 1st. It's a really beautiful country, and in every way. I was in Borjumi, little mountain town, absolutely gorgeous. I didn't get to enjoy it, to be honest, because most of the time I was there was the lockdown situation. So I might be going back there again, maybe in July, but I will be spending a month or so here in Tbilisi. And actually, Tbilisi is one of my favorite capitals, or not capitals, let's say. It's the capital of Georgia. It's one of my favorite cities, actually, Tbilisi. One of my favorite cities that I have been to. It's quite charming, actually. There is a charm about it, and I will show you guys more. I will take you to some really nice places. They have these magnificent churches here, really nice architecture, and the people are very friendly here in Tbilisi, and they're quite used to tourists. And there's a big expat community here in Tbilisi. So, more videos on that later. I want to specifically here. I want to specifically talk about Lord of the Rings. Okay, it's a little cold. It's 6 a.m. right now, and I just got a tank top on. Anyway, I got the music going on here because turn it down a little bit. The Lord of the Rings music. I just finished watching the 3 movies. Uh, it's I watched this movie, all of them, all 3 of them, mostly extended version. This last one I didn't. I only watched the third one extended version. So much better to watch the extended version. Maybe, I mean, I lost count. If I had to guess out of my ass, I'd say I watched Lord of the Rings maybe 13 times or so, around in that neighborhood, definitely in the double digits. I do run the marathons every now and then. I don't do them in a row anymore. I used to, but not anymore. It is my favorite movie by far, actually, without a doubt. There's no competition. There's not any other movie that comes close for my personal preference. In terms of everything, in terms of the themes in the movie, in terms of the music. This happens to me every time I watch Lord of the Rings. I decide I'm gonna run the marathon. Is I just play the music for like the next 2 weeks or so. I just listen. I've been listening to the soundtrack all week since I finished the movies. It's really beautiful. The music is extremely beautiful. We have the elf type music right now playing. I have them all on a playlist here. So you got the Rohan music, which is like the war type music. It's really beautiful. The themes are so, man. I mean, this is the movie that makes me cry. Particularly that scene where Gandalf shows up in the second movie. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Okay, I'm gonna ruin the movie for anybody that hasn't watched it, that is planning on watching it. Okay, I'm straight out ruining everything here. Okay, so don't watch this video if you're planning on watching Lord of the Rings, and please, if you haven't watched Lord of the Rings, do yourself a favor and go watch it. Okay, so that's the second movie, The Two Towers, when Gandalf comes back That scene makes me cry every time I watch it, because so Gandalf, we're going to discuss themes here relating to our reality, because Lord of the Rings is just describing reality. Actually, it's not fiction by any means. By any means, it's not fiction. Lord of the Rings is not fiction, and I'll explain to you why here. So, well, everything is fiction. Okay, let's not get into a metaphysical argument here. Okay, that's for another video. Picasso says anything you imagine is real, so it's all real and it's all fake, but that's for a different video. When Gandalf comes back in that second movie, and he put Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli they think they mistake him for Saruman, and then he shows up and the music plays. I cry because it reminds me of whenever I encounter angels. And I've learned to encounter angels without psychedelics. The first time it happened, I was using psychedelics, but I learned how to encounter them without. Still, the conditions need to be right. I need to be in a certain place in nature. And I was having a lot of encounters with angels when I was in Pi, particularly, because I was just always in nature. It was so beautiful. So it makes me cry because so Gandalf, the wizards are, so this is just my interpretation now, you can interpret things different way. The wizards represent angels and extraterrestrials. Positive, even look at Gandalf. He's always got the white halo. He's white, which is the color of purity, the color of angels, because they're pure, they've purified their consciousness. So the wizards represent the angels, and Gandalf, by the way, could, if he was given the permission to use his full powers, there would be no War of the Ring, because he would be able to defeat Sauron with a flicker of his staff. Right? The wizards are supposed to be angels, and I believe Tolkien was a devout Christian, and so because he was a devout Christian, angels are a big thing in Christianity. I actually think for real he meant the wizards to be like angels. Okay, so they are, and now angels. It's funny because angels, so the wizards. I have to turn down the music a little bit so I could focus more on what I'm saying here. So the wizards, they come. So Saruman was a good guy, but he turned evil. He got seduced by power or whatever. But let's talk about Gandalf specifically, because he represents that ideal angel. They incarnate in old men, and they're only allowed to use their very limited portions of their power. See, Gandalf's mission, he was sent back by the Valar. Who's the Valar? The Karma Guardians. By the way, Lord of the Rings describes reality. Okay? So he was sent by the Valar. What's his mission? His mission is to get the people that want to oppose Sauron together. That's why he barely uses his magic. He barely uses his powers. He's not supposed to. He's not given the authority, because Earth is a free will zone. And so the game has to play out between Sauron, the dark forces, and between the men and the elves and the people of the Middle Earth. So again, Lord of the Rings is an incredibly accurate account of reality. It's incredibly accurate. So then you have these angels, Gandalf, the wizards. There's 5 of them. Saruman's also one of them. He turned evil. And their mission, they have incredible power. Gandalf, if he was given his full powers by the Valar, who are basically, again, the Karma Guardians, the managers of the amusement park, he would have defeated Sauron with a flicker of his staff. Boom. Done. Okay? So, but this is exactly our reality too. Because if angels were given full authority to interfere here, there would be no deep state and alliance and drama here. It wouldn't be fair, actually. The light side has so much more power than the dark side. So that scene makes me cry, because it just reminds me of lots of my encounters with the angelic beings, and you feel like you're surrounded in a blanket of love, and you can't help but cry in that state. So, the wizards represent angels and positive beings of light, positive extraterrestrials. The elves represent the ascended human being, so fifth density human beings. Okay, they're immortals basically. They can live forever, but they can die also, right? They can die of a broken heart or they can die in battle. But because they've ascended their consciousness, they live forever. They eat. What do they eat? They eat the elvish bread and they just bite on it. And they basically don't need food. They're in the breatharian state practically, right? They just take a bite of the elvish bread. But even then, they don't really eat, right? The ascended human doesn't really eat neither. And we see now more breatharians because they live off light, the elves. They have elvish magic. They speak to trees. They sense consciousness in nature. They live alongside nature harmoniously. Very peaceful, non-violent, yet very powerful. Very, very powerful. The elves are very, very powerful. So they represent the ascended human, fifth density. Okay? We're basically seeing that more and more of the, healing, right? Instantaneous healing. The elves, they have all these things, all these tricks up their sleeves. Ascended humans. Then you've got that world of men. That's your average human beings right now in the current state of consciousness. So let's say 3D humans, and then the dwarves would be your primitive humans. So even less evolved human beings, right? That's why they're greedy, right? And they dwell in the mines, and they mine for gold, and So even a more primitive human, which still exists now, right? Even a more primitive human being. They love eating meat, right? Gimli was drooling over salted pork. So I love that Legolas Gimli comic relief relationship. It's hilarious. That still only counts as one. So what else? The Shire, the hobbits, represent the really kind-hearted aspect of humans in their current 3D. It's not the ascended human yet. I would say it's actually 4D humans. It's the hobbits. Yeah, that sounds right, because 4D is the chakra of heart, the chakra of connection to others, and helping and serving. 5D is wisdom, so elves would be 5D. So the Shire, the hobbits would be 4D humans, which is actually where we're moving right now. We're not gonna go straight from 3D to 5D. We're gonna go from 3D to 4D, and you can see the hobbits, Frodo, Sam. I mean, Sam was with Frodo the whole time, just helping him because he's his friend and he loves him, right? You could see it. They're kind-hearted folks. So fourth density humans. So the next stage actually is us as humanity becoming essentially hobbits, essentially. Peace-loving, living alongside with nature, but not yet wise to do what the elves do yet. That's fifth density. Tolkien, I don't know if Tolkien knew about all this stuff. I know he was a devout Christian, but it's very accurate description of reality. It's extremely accurate, actually. It's mind-blowing when you watch it and you've learned. I mean, this is why I always rewatch Lord of the Rings every now and then, because I take my new knowledge and any new knowledge that I gain, and I'm like, wow, I see this now in Lord of the Rings. I always loved Lord of the Rings and I always pick things in it, but now it's a whole different ballgame. Now you need to go even further. Look at Sauron, Satan. So even Sauron is representing Satan with the all-seeing eye, right? That's the symbol that the deep state loves to use. Satan's minions. Who's Satan? Satan is a non-physical being, probably a reptilian or an archon, which is an extraterrestrial being that's negative, that has influence over this matrix, and his minions pay him lip service through their rituals and everything. So he sees, it's the eye of Sauron because it sees everything You see, because this is, Satan considers this matrix to be his. But they're losing power over it now because it's not theirs anymore. It's not Satan's anymore. Okay, so Sauron is clearly meant to be Satan because of, just look at the name, Sauron. It's just a, or you know, Saturn, right? Saturn. Allegedly, that's where actually that non-physical being Satan is it's so Sauron, Saturn. See, Saturn. I mean, it's practically the same, right? So he seemed, I think Tolkien wasn't just a devout Christian, and he wasn't just using Christian themes. It seems to me that he was very well acquainted with occultism, with the occult, not being part of it, but just understanding. Like we're trying to understand in these videos, and with all the current events, what is happening, who's been ruling over this planet, why is it so messed up, and what's going on. So it seems to me that Tolkien was well versed, well acquainted with occultism and with really the way things are. And he seemed to know a thing or two, it seems to me, about the connection between that Satan being and Saturn, the planet, and then Satan, right? So he was a genius, and Tolkien was a genius. Clearly, he knew way more than people thought he did, and his works in Lord of the Rings seem to be more than just a description of good and evil. He seems like he knew more, because even the way he describes the Middle Earth, right? I mean, he also alludes to reincarnation, because when Gandalf dies fighting the Burlock, he gets reincarnated as Gandalf the White, from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. So he seems to know about this. The way he describes the game is exactly the way it is. The way he describes Middle Earth and how it is. Free will. He describes the Middle Earth as free will zone. That's why the wizards, which are the angels, really the positive ETs, the light beings, which have way more power than the negative entities in like Sauron or anything, they have very little permission to interfere, because this is free will. All they can do is incarnate in these old men that they're not powerful, compared to the actual power these beings yield. And then they just, anybody that wants to help fight evil, they just get them together, kind of thing. And that was mostly what Gandalf was doing. And that's a very accurate description. That's what the angels do. The way they help us here, beings who want to actually fight the evil, is just they send us messages, telepathy. And they just get, they get the star seeds together and the light workers together, etc., which is what they're doing right now. That's how they exert influence. So it wasn't just a good and evil story. It was a lot more than that. Tolkien was very well versed with a lot. He knew a lot, for sure, and it shows in his work. And this is the first time I see all of this in Lord of the Rings, because I didn't have all this knowledge before, and I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in a long time. This may be the longest period between Lord of the Rings marathons that I haven't watched. What else? What are some other themes? I mean, there's so many beautiful themes. Friendship, love. Aragorn's love to Arwen is just so admirable. Their loyalty to one another. Arwen choosing a mortal life, despite being able to choose an immortal one, because she loved Aragorn so much. That's very, very moving, very touching. What else? There's so many things, man. So many things in Lord of the Rings. It's so beautiful. And the movies themselves, I mean, the story is mind-blowing, as is. But the movie, the production, the battle scenes, the music, it's so incredible. It's so incredible. And it's a good time to watch it now, because it's a description of this unfoldment of the deep state versus the alliance battle of good and evil that we are witnessing right now. It absolutely is. What else? Oh, another thing. the whole time you're watching Lord of the Rings, it seems like good is losing. And then at the end, good wins. Exact same as now. Doesn't it seem like good is losing? Doesn't seem like, oh, but look, they're gonna mass vaccinate everybody. Oh, look, it seems like it, doesn't it? It seems like it right now that evil is still winning. Like, what's going on? Where are the mass arrests? What's happening? Why aren't they arrested? Why is Bill Gates still walking around? Shouldn't he be arrested? Doesn't everyone know he's a criminal? What's going on, right? It seems like it, but actually, it's same thing. It's same thing. A few people describe Trump as someone who always seems like he's about to lose. Like he basically declared bankruptcy, I think 3 times, but he always wins. It's funny because that's kind of how good is right now. Also, it seems like good is losing. It seems like good has been losing. And evil is gaining ground, but that's not the way it is at all. Check my latest video to understand, even objectively looking at the game, that actually good now has the upper hand. The light side has the upper hand. So I highly recommend to watch Lord of the Rings again if you haven't watched it. You will make a lot of connections. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.